Hi everyone, it is a special podcast, if you will, with just me and King of Uncool. It will be regarding Spider-Man No Way Home, and it's just gonna be us gushing about it because I have a feeling we both loved it very much. I'm not sure if it was for the same reasons or various reasons or whatever reasons, but you'll find out today. So, with that, King, how was your little break?
Honestly, it was pretty good. Ultimately, I didn't get up to much, but it was a good chance for me to catch up on my sleep and just take life a lot easier, which is something I'm always very happy to do.
That's good. For me, I was able to visit family. I saw the movie in Times Square, which is,
Nice.
it was the fan reaction. We'll get
Mm,
into it. Was everything. I saw it 3 times, three
yes.
different states. Um, let's just say Times Square had the best reaction. Other than that, as many of you seen on Twitter and on Discord, I have tested positive for COVID. Um, why am I telling you? I'm usually open with my house just because I want people to know that I don't want them thinking I'm trying to hide stuff. I mean, it's not really anything big, but it is big. But um, this is your public service announcement to get COVID tested or the COVID vaccine because I am COVID positive, but luckily I'm not experiencing a lot of the severe symptoms. I have a minor muscle aches and a cough. That's about it. I guarantee you, and there's been studies and lots of common sense that show that if you aren't vaccinated, that your symptoms will be a lot worse. So everybody, COVID's still spreading. Omicron's a thing, and it's gotten worse. And there's a new mutation in France. Just be careful, be safe. Wear a mask. It's not the end of the world. It's not imposing in your freedoms or anything. It's just you being a decent human being. And yeah, okay. Now that we have that little PSA and our little how we did during the break, let's talk about the movie King. We're gonna start with the opening sequence. Basically, we start off right where we left off in Spider-Man: Far From Home. Jonah Jameson exposes who Peter Parker is, and then you have him and Michelle trying to run away from the people trying to attack them, and they go to their house. Well, they have a little exchange where they're gonna go to the house of Michelle. Michelle's like, "Oh, we can't because my dad won't like you," and she's like, "I thought you liked me," and she basically implies that because he's Spider Man, he won't like him because he's putting her in danger. Then we have them go to Peter's apartment, and that's where we'll stop there because that's a little area where we could stop. What did you think of the opening sequence?
The opening sequence was actually released before the movie was as like a 2 minute thing on YouTube. And I think I liked it just as much as everyone else liked it. It made sense. I mean, it literally picks up the moment after Spider-Man and Michelle get like accosted by the crowd. There's actually a really funny scene of him trying to swing away, and some dude literally jumps off a car trying to catch on to him, but he fails completely and just probably like face
A
floors
massive,
himself. It
yeah,
was pretty funny.
or the Karen who's like, "Look at that,
Yeah,
he
like
hit
who
me."
tries to grab him and shit, and she's like, "Oh, he hit me," when he actually just like pushed her away, and she's like, "Well, yeah, of course he pushed you away. You were trying to grab him. He doesn't want to be touched by you. Go away."
Exactly, and then yeah, it was a good. I kind of like that they showed that this movie immediately follows the last one. That there's
Yeah.
no gap because it just shows like everything's heading for a collision course.
Yeah.
We
Well, there's no like
then
there's no immediate gap in that sense. Like there are some like moments that take place later on, but like
hmm
yeah, like he's
oh
clearly
yeah,
been going through like for example like the stuff with him and Michelle going to his house. We will talk about that in a sec. But like, yeah, that happens, and then over the course of the next couple weeks is when the rest of the events roll out. Probably over the course of about 2 months or so, give or take, because obviously that part happens near the end of summer, and the actual event is like upcoming Halloween. So there's like a 2 month period where he's just dealing with all this stupid shit.
yeah, it's gotta suck.
Yeah,
So
totally.
yeah, so like you said, yeah, I'm gonna just follow the synopsis or the plot that's on the MCU wiki. They hide in Peter's apartment and reunite with May and Happy, who reveal that they have broken up. not long after the Department of Damage Control, which is a nice throwback to the first Spider-Man, where they were in charge of.
Sorry to cut you off. I just want to say I really love that scene where Happy walks back in thinking Peter's back, and then he sees him in his underwear, and Michelle's right there, and this is her first time meeting Aunt May. So they think they're about to do it, but they're not, and there's like helicopters fucking circling the building and shit.
Yeah, no, and then that was a line that Peter said when he was like in his
It's not
underwear.
about sex.
Yeah, no.
Or a
Before
different one.
when he was with Michelle in his underwear and they walk in, but before they walk in, they're hearing something, and that's why they get the implication that it's are they trying to bang? And then they're like, "Oh,
Yeah.
yeah, I didn't see anything." That was top tier moment. And then yes, the damage control, the Department of Damage Control comes in, which is a nice reference or throwback to the first Spider-Man,
Mhm.
where they were picking up the scraps from the
The Avengers
Chitauri.
battle in New York. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And then they take them into custody along with Ned Leeds for interrogation. What I like here, and I'm stopping sort of, is how May and Michelle kind of were in sync, where they're basically telling Peter, "Don't say shit without your lawyer."
They
And
know this shit. Like
yeah,
they've
yeah.
watched enough crime TV shows.
And then Michelle, the guys try to finesse Michelle, and Michelle's like, "Oh yeah, this is what you're gonna do, right? Yeah, no, thanks." The scene in the police station that I liked was the scene with the damage control guy and May, where he's basically telling her she's a horrible guardian and how she basically endangered Peter for her sake, and she was like, "Just give me my goddamn. I need to see Peter now. Like I don't give a shit about your bullshit. Just let me see him now." And then that's when we cut forward and we see the fucking cane.
First, yep, and also like like the first cameo people were really looking to see. Like obviously there were the others ones which we'll talk about, but this was like the first one. Like this is like we don't need him for a lot, but like we need to see him a little bit because it makes so much sense considering the situation.
Mm-hmm. It's and like I said, the cane represents my boy, our boy, Matt Murdock. For those who don't know, that's Daredevil. If you haven't seen the Netflix show, I recommend it.
Most
It's
importantly, he is being played by his Netflix actor Charlie Cox.
and he does a damn fine job.
Charlie
Uh
Cox is Daredevil in the same context that Chris Hemsworth is Thor or Robert Downey Jr. is Iron Man.
Very, very true. And then Matt Murdock basically tells Peter, "Okay, charges didn't stick, but in the matter of public opinion, you got a lot of work to do." And like you said, it was nice to see him in the show because at the end of the day, Matt Murdock is a lawyer. So if he pops in from time to time as a lawyer, that's great because it's just reminding the audience that, the universe is still existing. These characters are still
Still
people,
exist
not
in like
just.
a relatively realistic world, and therefore like
Mhm,
things like law and order and medicine or whatever are still important things for people to take into consideration.
exactly. And
Oh,
then,
the fucking scene with the brick though.
yes, yeah, I was going to get to that. So I think first he's talking to Happy Hogan. He's like, "You just need a better lawyer because your
But
shit's
no,
all
so
kind
like
of fucked."
he sets it up. He's like, you need a really good lawyer. And he tells Peter, your legal troubles are over, but you still have to face the court of public opinion, following which the brick flies through the room, and they both go
Yes.
for it. But Matt gets to it first because of positioning, and he's obviously much taller.
And how did you do that? I'm a really good
I'm
lawyer.
really good. Yeah.
Like I said, Times Square was the moment they saw the cane, everybody lost their shit.
Hmm.
The only people that did it was my wife. She was next to me. She's like, "Why's everybody cheating?" I was like, "Homegirl,
She's probably like
that's
literally like,
Daredevil."
who's that?
She was. I was like, "Homegirl, that is Daredevil. Get it together." But you know what? I cut her some slack because she at least she knows the Marvel universe, the movies anyway. So I was like, "All right, I could just it's Daredevil. He's the guy. He's the guy." And she's like, "Oh, okay." And then from there we jump to, um, they go back to school, and it's kind of awkward and depressing for him because we see all those signs like we saw in the trailers where they're like, "Oh, he's the devil. Oh, Mysterio was right. Mysterio was the hero." And everybody is just divided on who they're rooting for, and then Michelle has her own little section of people rooting for her and shit, which is just
Weird. And in
weird.
one case that was like super creepy, like this really old dude asking her like if she's gonna have spider babies or something like that. Like what the fuck was that about?
Yeah, I mean, that would happen in real life, so I get it, but it's still kind of fucking weird, even if it, yeah, you know. And then I like how Flash was like, "Me and Spider Man are best friends. Me and Peter. Here's our book, the
Flashpoint. It's a reference to the DC story Flashpoint.
Two Hearts. So what was the name of it?
It was called
He's the name.
Flashpoint.
No, 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 no. Flash's book had something. One spider, two hearts, or some shit. Had like a little subtitle. I forgot. It's fine. We'll
Actually, I
look
don't
past it.
recall that part.
It's yeah. It wasn't that big of detail, but it was kind of funny. Uh, yeah, and then everybody, all of them are trying to get into MIT. So actually, I'm jumping around. We go inside the classroom or inside the school, and we see those three teachers, those faculty members.
Mhm.
One, the conspiracy theorist, the principal, and then the other guy who they went on the
He
trip
was like
with.
so like funny story about that guy. He was like the driver's ed teacher for later in like a Spider-Man related commercial that Marvel was doing, and they just liked him so much in the commercial they brought him back for the movie. I don't know
Oh
if you've seen
shit!
the
Well,
commercial, but like it was like a nice little funny commercial of like advertising a car. Like hey so the actor's name is JB Smoove, and they're like
yeah.
hey we like this guy like, and then they brought him back for the movie. I don't know what his character actually does like in the school outside of like
See,
obviously being a teacher. Maybe he is the driver's ed in this universe, although they don't specifically mention it in Far From Home, as far as I remember. But yeah, it was really it was funny. Like they didn't give them as much screen time as they have in the previous films, but I feel like that was for the better because we don't need that much detail.
yeah, that shit. And then they had the little shrine.
Hmm.
Fucking Peter. Oh my god, we shape heroes. Oh, if you need to climb the roof and just walk around with your spider thing, go ahead. You know what? It's an honor to serve you, sir. They were just so. It was a funny
Just a
moment.
bunch of fanboys, really.
Yeah, no, not the conspiracy theorist. It was like Mysterio was right, which was hilarious because it's just teachers and shit.
Mm.
And then, like I said, they're trying to get into MIT, but so what the only thing the one gripe I do have is, so we know that they're applying to colleges because they're in their senior year. And I did skip the rooftop scene with Michelle and Tom,
Mm.
or Peter. My bad,
Yeah,
I'm
I know
switching
what you
into
meant.
for reasons later we're gonna talk about. That's the reason I said Tom. So, and then they're talking about how the newspaper is basically saying he's got powers to hypnotize and brainwash and do all this crazy
Yeah,
shit. And she's like, "Yes, my spider." See one thing, and I'm kind of all over the place, but one thing I really loved in this one is that I bought the romance between Michelle and Peter. I cannot say that I bought it in the first one. The first one, it was basically non-existent. I can't say I really bought it in the second one
mm.
because it just didn't seem like it was real.
I
But
would
in
agree with
this,
you. I felt like it was tacked on in the second, and in the first one, I just kind of was like, why? Like she just doesn't seem like a very impressive character.
mhm. and and then this one, you could obviously they're dating in real life, but besides that, you could really tell that they focus more on their romance aspect, which is one thing that I've always said that the Andrew Garfield Spider-Man movies have over all the other Spider-Man movies
I agree.
is the romance. I was rewatching Amazing Spider-Man 2, and the moment Gwen says she's leaving to Oxford, my boy fucking goes to I forgot which of the bridges in New York, and
Like the Brooklyn
fucking
Bridge or
spider webs.
something. I'm not.
Yeah,
I don't know. There's a lot of fucking bridges.
and he basically writes, "I love you,"
Yeah.
and it's like this motherfucker clearly loves her, bro. It's like, so
Yeah.
I felt that type of way regarding Tom and Zendaya's characters in this one. But yeah, one thing like, going back to my gripe is the rejection letters. I don't know how it's in Canada, but in the United States, if you get a small envelope, that's a rejection. It's usually when you get a big ass packet that you know that it's not a rejection. Again, maybe I'm just a boomer now and
Mhm.
it's changed over the last 20 years, 15, 20 years.
I mean,
But
my
so every
biggest like gripe with that whole thing is like, what's with the letters? Like everything's done over email now.
Okay, yeah, fair. Fair. That yeah, I guess that's a better complaint. Mine was it's a small letter, it's a rejection. Yeah, but you're right.
I do know like well actually so I can't really speak to that because my application process was different because of different places I've lived. But I do know what you're talking about too because like I know that sitcoms have done that little trope of like, oh, it's a small envelope, therefore it's a rejection, and it's only when you get a big envelope that it's an acceptance because then they would include like brochures, welcome packages, like study guides and university related pamphlets
Yep.
or whatever. That's my
Mhm.
understanding between the two, but yeah, like otherwise, like they clearly just did that whole thing just so that would have those scenes of everybody being together and being audibly like disappointed or whatever, and that's what ultimately motivates Peter to go do his thing with Doctor Strange.
Yep. And then perfect transition. When they get the rejection letter from MIT, they're with Zendaya, who's the only one working. Ned isn't working. Peter's not working. Lazy bastards. Uh,
I mean, Peter has kind of an
they're
excuse for not working part time.
yeah, no, you're right. You're right. But I'm just saying, the other Peters worked at the Daily Bugle and worked as Spider-Man. No excuse. Um,
I mean,
it's a
yeah,
joke.
but
It's a joke.
I don't think that was the Daily Bugle thing right now doesn't quite work.
No, it doesn't.
It's not an official
Uh,
newspaper office in this universe. It's like an underground blog operation. We'll talk
that's
about
one
that
thing.
later too, but yeah.
Did I skip that part in the beginning? No, right? No,
And
wait.
you
Yeah, in the be.
you mentioned that Jane, Joan, and Jameson doxed him, but like not the fact that they're basically like an underground blog with like a shitty green
It's a
screen
YouTube
and
channel.
crap. Yeah, basically.
It's a yeah. At the beginning of the show, at the beginning, I'm sorry, at the beginning of the movie, it's literally a glorified YouTube channel run by like some nut job, which is hilarious.
Yeah.
Um, but yes, going back to the rejection, there where Michelle works, and then Peter gets his idea because he sees the Halloween ornaments during the Christmas holidays. So he was like, "Huh,
Yeah,
that
it's
guy
like they've
looks like
got
Doctor."
like yeah, it's like Captain America has a musical, Doctor Strange is getting his image used for ornaments and stuff. Like that's funny.
And then Hawkeye, poor Hawkeye's being treated as Katniss Everdeen.
What?
Uh, well, he was ignored for Katniss Everdeen in the Hawkeye show.
Oh, okay, I haven't
When
finished it.
okay, fair enough. Uh, yeah. So he goes to Doctor Strange and he asks him if he could make. Wait, what did he ask him? No, he asked him to reverse time before, so everybody could not know that he's Spider Man. And Doctor Strange says, "Yeah, we can't do that. I don't have the time stone anymore." And Peter's like, "All right, my bad. Sorry for wasting your time." And this is where a lot of people are complaining that why didn't Peter suggest this and this and this? And it was like he suggested time. Doctor Strange said no. Then Doctor Strange said, "You know what? I could actually make everybody forget your identity, though." I mean, Doctor Strange could have just said, "I could have everybody forget Mysterio," but he said your identity. Um, and then he says, but he's warned by Wong not to do it, and then Wong's
No,
like,
Wong doesn't actually warn him not to do it in this version. In this version, Wong is literally just like, leave me out of it.
yeah, 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 yeah. And no, at first he's like, don't do it, and
No,
then he
at
asked,
first he doesn't say don't do it. He's just like, hey, do you remember like that spell's like dangerous and stuff? We don't do it in this case. And Strange's like, oh yeah, we do. We've done it in this case. Do you remember this? And Wong is like, no. And he's like, exactly. And
exactly,
then Wong is
yeah.
like, whatever, leave me out of this. And then he goes to that
It,
other place.
I like how also Wong is the sorcerer supreme because
Strange
fucking
disappeared for
strange,
5 years. Yeah.
which makes sense for Wong to appear in Shang Chi fighting Abomination
Yeah,
because he's
true.
trying to
But I'm
basically
still
recruit.
curious, like, why was he there doing that?
Yeah, a lot of questions, but the rest of the universe that was kind of well done here. And then yeah, like we said, they go to the strange attempts to cast the spell at the ruins of Kafla. What was funny was when Peter was like, cough call, like if he knew what it meant,
Yeah.
but he was like he had no idea what it meant. And then Peter, obviously this is where we get the trailer. Peter's like, oh wait, we can't mess this spell up so many. Wait, my
He
aunt's gonna
it's
forget.
literally like what I said in one of my tweets. It was like this whole thing happens because he couldn't shut the fuck up.
Yes.
I will say, like,
He-
this is one thing where it's like, yeah, this could have been resolved by Doctor Strange sitting him down for like 2 minutes explaining what he's gonna do. And if Spider-Man just gave him all that information in a 2 minute sit down before the spell started, Strange could have just like done all that at the beginning. But like when he's like in the area just like constantly talking and shit, it's like, oh my god. Like,
but
local man
he
ruins everything.
but I feel like this also speaks to Strange's arrogance because he could have done that. He should have done that, but he didn't. And then like I said, I watched it 3 times. I kept track. Peter only messed with the spell like 4 or 5 times at most. Strange blames him for messing it up or altering the spell 6 times, which is bullshit because Peter only asked for his Aunt May, Michelle, Ned, and Happy Hogan would remember him as Spider-Man. Strange is the one who basically included himself to not forget who Spider-Man is. So it's like, all right, my guy, I get Peter fucked it up, but you also fucked it up. And like you said, the entire spell just shits the bed. It blows up, and then Strange yells at him and tells him, "You have to pick. You either want to be a hero or you want to be Peter Parker. It's not my fault that you weren't able to get a call. You weren't able to call the school and ask them to like reconsider your application." And that's when, oh, you could do that. So we did it this entire thing just because you didn't call the school. And that's when Flash Thompson gets the contact, and he basically tells Peter where to go, and that's when we get to the bridge scene. I'm gonna stop there for a bit just because there's so much. Besides you wanting Peter to shut the fuck up,
Yeah.
what else did you think of that entire section?
I mean, I do think it had some degree of like speaking to Strange's arrogance, which we saw minutes earlier when he was trying to explain the whole thing to Wong, and Wong was like, "Fine, just like leave me out of it," because he knows like, even though Wong is technically the Sorcerer Supreme, it does still appear to be the case that Steven is the more powerful one between the two of them. So he's like, "Okay, you know what? I'm just washing my hands of all this stuff. Just let it proceed." Yeah, no, like that was pretty funny. Where Strange was like, "Okay, you just why didn't you have them reconsider your application?" Like, because like Peter's also supposed to be like a genius character in his own right. It's like he didn't think of that incredibly obvious thing. Like, look at what people do now. Like, people go back, like if a job rejects them, like they go back and email like the hiring manager, be like, "Hey, I think you should reconsider," and blah blah blah. Like, yeah,
Yeah,
and a funny story too, like that because like, okay, so like
hmm
obviously like Ned, MJ, and Peter are getting rejected because Peter is Spider-Man thing, but like Flash Thompson has been this whole time being like, "Hey, Spider-Man and I are best friends. I wrote a book about it, blah blah blah." But he's still got into MIT and he's getting invited to a party. Kind of plot
here's
convenience right there.
here's the
Unless
thing
the
though.
implication is that nobody takes him seriously.
I think there's two things at play here. One, Flash's family, we've known for the previous 2 movies, is filthy rich.
Mhm.
Money buys you anything, even entry levels in colleges. Look at the scandals that happened in the United States recently with
My understanding
parents.
was that like money did have a role in those scandals, but it was also because they made a false impression of the students' skills because part of the reason is like money bought them the skills to an extent. Therefore, the skills would bring the school trophies and crap like that, which schools are always looking for, especially for sports and whatever.
Sort of. There's more to that.
Okay, fair enough.
So many
I don't
people
know
want
how
to.
school works in America like that.
Yeah, just I need to know in America is if you have money, you could get whatever you want. And then secondly, to your point, not everybody took Flash seriously. when he said that he was Spider-Man's friend. I mean, enough people saw. I'm pretty sure enough people, especially in the East Coast, in that universe, saw the trial and saw who was getting accused and shit.
Yeah.
At no point was Flash accused.
Mhm.
Ned was targeted by the cops. Michelle
It
was
was
targeted by
Ned,
the cops.
Happy, Michelle, and Aunt May.
And yep, and that was the only ones. There was no Flash, so everybody was like, "This guy's just trying to make a quick buck," and people were stupid enough to buy it, the book anyway.
Mhm.
But admissions were like, "Yeah, he's not a friend, so it's fine."
Probably.
Yeah, but Strange's actions here kind of strange. Hopefully, he tones down the arrogance. I mean, makes her a good movie, but all that shit could have been avoided. Then, like I said, we get to the bridge scene. The bridge scene is basically Peter going to find the administrator from MIT.
Mm-hmm.
And then we see he finds her, and then we see everybody running from the bridge or the freeway. And then we hear the not claws, but we hear
Tentacles.
yeah. And that's when we see the first
returnee.
Peter is suddenly ambushed by Otto Octavius, who seems to know him personally. Octavius grabs him and rips out a piece of the Iron Spider armor, transferring its nanites onto his tentacle. He goes for another strike, but Parker reveals his face, which is unfamiliar to Octavius. Parker then takes control of Octavius' tentacles with the suit nanites and rescues the MIT admin from falling off the bridge, who decides to help get him and his friends admitted out of gratitude. So I just read the little blurb there, but yes. So what did you think of first the entire sequence? Because we haven't even got into the best part of the sequence yet. But this portion of the sequence and how the interaction between Peter and the MIT lady went.
Well, I didn't think there was much context to Peter and the MIT lady. It's literally like a generic Spider-Man thing, and that he came to her, she got in trouble, he saved her, and then she's like, "We'll reconsider you and your friends, or whatever it was." Then it's like the fight with him and Otto Octavius was really good. I think this was probably like the one of the better fights we've actually had, like in Spider-Man movies, between like two villains of like, this is my power, this is your power. We're gonna like literally use the extent of our powers and see what happens. And when you say like the special moment or whatever, are you referring to the nanites from the Iron Spider suit taking over Octavius's arms?
I'm talking about the Green Elf.
Oh, well, I was gonna get to that part later after the fight because that comes later. But I thought that was like it was a really clever way to have those things work out. The Iron Spider restricting Otto Octavius, and then
Oh yes.
then the Green Goblin shows up, and Otto Octavius knew who he was, and Doctor Strange like brings them back before the Goblin can bomb them to death.
Yeah. I liked like I said, I do agree with you that Peter saves. Well, first he insults MIT. He's like, "Don't be stupid like me, MIT. Accept my friends." So I
Yeah,
really like
that's
that
funny.
Peter's pushing this selfishness of fuck what happened to me. My friends shouldn't deal with the consequences because of me. They have nothing to do with it. He's
Mhm.
very pushing of that, which I liked. And then we have Octavia show up, and then he just smacks the shit out of the car, and it's about to fall. And then when he goes back, when he saves her because of the tentacles being binded to the Stark armor suit,
Mhm.
and then he basically she tells him, "I'll reconsider you and your friends." He's like, "No, not me, my friends." She was like, "You and your friends. I didn't ask you. I'm telling you, you and your friends will be reconsidered. Just stay out of trouble and you'll be fine,"
Mhm.
which was nice. I also liked. It was clearly a Marvel moment, a Marvel gag moment or where she's basically like yells at Otto Octavius. She's like, "You get over here," basically implying that she's gonna smack the shit out of him. I thought that was kind of funny. But yeah, the Green Goblin. It all happened so fast. If we're being honest, the fight happens and the Green Goblin attacks, and I was like, "Oh shit!" And then, like you said, we get transported back to the Sanctum Sanctorum or the Sanctum, and we see that fucking what's his name? Strange is a little fucked up, but we see that he has a lizard
Yeah.
trapped in the. I would have loved to see that fight between Strange and Kurt Connors.
I feel like it wouldn't have been much of a challenge for Doctor Strange, to be honest.
His face was kind of
It
bloody
was
though.
different, but I think that was more just like a special effects update.
Oh, maybe. Because if it was a fight where he actually got cut up, that would have been interesting to see.
Yeah.
But then he explains to Peter that the multiverse is real and that they were pulled in from the multiverse because of the Feld spell because they knew his reality. And then he says to contain the spell, Strange locks it in the Machina de Cadavus, a mystical containment suit or unit. I'm sorry. And then he basically tells. So this is where the entire movie shifts, right? The first good hour is of Peter down because people know who he is. He can't live a normal life. He can't just be himself no more. And then now we get to the Sinister Five, if you will. So Parker, Strange tells Peter that he's got to fucking find these people and bring them back so they could send them back to their own world. And then we get the line that gets changed is Scooby Doo this crap gets changed to Scooby Doo this shit.
Isn't it the other way around?
I don't. Well, it was one of the two.
Yeah.
It gets changed. I don't know how I feel about it. I mean,
I'll be honest, I don't care. I figure they probably filmed like a bunch of different versions of the scene and they just went with a different one in the trailer so people didn't know what to expect.
Yeah, you're right. Then we get the Peter versus Electro and Sandman. Right. What did you think of that? And I won't really read the synopsis because it's basically them fighting, so we don't need to worry about anything, missing anything. So what did you think of that? What did you think of Electro's introduction and then Sandman's introduction and then their overall exchange?
I thought the way they found Sandman, Electro made perfect sense. Just a little bit of internet research. Spider-Man heads out there. It's near a power plant and all the power wires, so he seems stronger for some reason. That's one part I don't get. Like he was clearly getting power from a very advanced structure in the Amazing Spider-Man universe, but here like normal ass power lines are giving him more power. Like that doesn't really make any sense to me. In terms of like the actual fight, it was pretty good. I liked seeing Sandman as well. Like he remembers Peter and he shows like, hey Peter, do you remember me? And then they like kind of work together to bring down Electro. I have a question about him, but like I'll get back to that. It's probably you might have the same one actually. But yeah, it was pretty cool. Then they knocked down Electro and he's like, oh, you guys just gonna ignore that I'm standing here completely buck ass naked. They're like, yeah, we are. And then they send him back, and then Sandman actually gets angry. He's like, what did you do? Did you kill him? Then Spider-Man has to send him back to the Sanctum with a little teleportation shot bracelet that Doctor Strange gave him.
No, first he says the tree, and then fucking first he says the tree. Remember when he tries to throw the initial web?
Oh yeah. No, first like he tries to throw it at the Electro, but like it just passes through him and it hits a tree, and then the tree ends up in the little cage thing that Strange built.
Because there's a funny line that happens
later down the line. Yeah. I remember. We'll get to that once they've captured everybody.
Yeah. So to go off your point, I think later on in the movie, it's basically established that this universe is more advanced than the other universes because of the nanotech and all that other stuff.
But like, I agree that it has like a general higher potential than those, but like, that's only for like very specific individuals, countries, and locations. Like, these are like the power lines in the middle of buttfuck nowhere. It's like, really, this is giving him that much power? That just doesn't make much sense to me. Like, I understand later down the line because he seems to have like a Stark arc reactor, so I can get behind that one. But like initially, it's like, what the fuck?
All right, fair enough. I was just trying to bring a point. And then yeah, I liked how Sandman was like, Peter, you remember me? He's like, different Peter. but yeah, hi. And then that's when he turns when he's like, "Did you kill him? You're not the Peter I know. So did you kill him?" And then he tries to attack him. And he's like, "Ah!" And then he just takes him back.
Mm-hmm.
So that was. I liked how throughout this entire thing, Sandman's only playing the side that'll get him back to his family. He doesn't give a fuck what side he's on,
Yeah.
as long as he gets back to his daughter. What was your question? Do you want to wait for it later down the line?
Can bring it up now, like, and here, like, maybe I don't know if you felt the same way, but like, why was Sandman literally made of sand for like the entirety of the movie? I didn't get that part because it's
Okay,
clearly Thomas Hayden Church, his original actor, doing the voice, and he does appear for like the last, like, he gets like a 30 seconds of screen time at the Statue of Liberty scene, but for most of it,
that's
he's literally just a CGI Sandman, and I'm like, why is this what they're doing? Because this is not how Sandman is ever really depicted in the comics. Like, he's always wearing like the green and purple striped shirt, the brown jeans, and like the flat top hair. And in this case, it's like he's not, but like they've got Thomas Hayden Church, who, from what I could tell, still looks very good for whatever his age is. I don't know how old he is. He's aged like
so.
really well. Like, I don't know if this was like the actor just wasn't available and he was only like able to like record his voice lines over the internet or whatever. I wasn't sure what
Okay.
that was all about. What's the
So
story benefit to having him be a Sandman? Literally.
I don't think there was any benefit. It was more of a COVID restriction than COVID safety, because he wasn't able to make it into the country or wherever they were recording. I don't know where, because I remember reading this, and so they were only able to get his voice. That's why him and the lizard don't have as much screen time or as much dialogue. Now, regarding the screen time you saw of
Yeah,
Sandman,
yeah.
most of it was reused from Spider-Man 3.
Was it actually?
Hmm.
Oh, I didn't know that. I actually thought they filmed new stuff.
It was I
Like,
saw
I thought
side
he
by
did
side
look
comparison.
older.
I think they did it the best they could, but COVID and everything happening around the world, they couldn't get it filmed in time.
Huh.
So I think that's what happened. I'll send you the article because there was an article about it
Yeah, do that
regarding
because
that.
that honestly, that's like my only like initial criticism towards that stuff. It's just like, why? Like, I do, like, I obviously I understand like Otto Octavius has to be there in person, Green Goblin has to be there in person, even Electro. You could say the same thing, but then I was like, well, I mean, wouldn't it actually make more sense like if the actors were available to like have one of them, like, well, to have like Sandman be his own self and have Electro be constantly blue or whatever, and that you could CGI in? I don't know.
Oh, for Electro, I 1,000% guarantee you that Jamie Foxx was like, "I'm not being blue no more. I don't give a fuck.
Maybe.
I'm not being blue or having that comb over, goofy
Well,
looking
you
Gap
definitely don't have
face."
to have the fucking comb over. You can change the hairstyle, but like, I don't know. To me, that would have just made
Jay,
more sense logistically.
Jamie Foxx is like, "None of this blue shit. I'm tired of it. Tired. I'm not Avatar."
Actually, didn't even
Um,
care that much. Like, I didn't mind it in the Amazing Spider-Man 2.
he was a good. That movie aged well. I think it aged well.
I think it
I'm
was
by.
fine, like, generally speaking. Like, it is a little bit congested, but I don't mind. It's still very well made.
Yeah. Again, Andrew bias. It's okay.
We'll talk more about
So
Andrew later, too.
yes, we will, because there's new shit that came out on Variety that is just important.
Mhm.
Um. So yeah, he basically captures them, and then we learn, because we go back to the sanctum. We learn that Lizard talks, and they all lose their shit. Wait, the reptile talks, and then that's when Ned asks, "So is this
This a
like
man that was mutated into a tree.
it's just a tree, man. It's just Jamie Foxx killed it with the comedy. Jamie
I
Foxx
think that
killed
it
it.
was really good. Like, a good idea, like, have him bring back himself, like, come back himself and, like, let Jamie Foxx do the Jamie Foxx thing, because he has a very distinct way of, like, conveying his comedy, kind of like Chris Tucker or various other
Mhm.
comedians who've done similar characters. So, yeah.
It's just a tree, man. It's just a tree. And, oh my god, that line killed me. And then we get a call from May who talks about one of Peter's visitors. Well, actually, no, backtrack.
Mhm.
We we see Norman trying to escape from the Green Goblin mask.
Mhm.
Right? He's losing his shit, and he's hearing the voice, so he breaks the masks, which is like a comic book cover, which was nice little throwback reference. And then he goes to Feast because he sees on the poster that Spider-Man works with Feast, which is another reference to basically Miles. And that's when Aunt May calls Peter and tells him, "Yo, we have one of your visitors here. He needs help. He needs like fucking mental help. He doesn't need just send him back to his world. He needs help." And that's when Peter was like, "It's not my problem. Just let's send him back. Get this shit done. I want to get to MIT." And this movie really does a good job of portraying that Peter, for a lot of the selflessness he still had some selfishness in him, where he's like, "Fuck all this shit. Let me just make sure I get into MIT. My friends get into MIT. We're all good and we're all happy. Fuck everybody else." And that's when we learn. Oh, he takes them back to the sanctum. He sends them to the thing, and that's when we learn their fates in their other universes, right?
How
Most
everybody
of
seemed
them.
to know what was happening to each other in their universes.
Mm,
Like Sandman
mhm.
knew what happened to Dr. Otto Octavius, and that part was public knowledge, but
And
I didn't know if it was public knowledge that Norman Osborn was Green Goblin, because I feel like that they would have made more of an issue with that, like because Harry was his son and running the company and crap like that. He was like
I
legitimately a
think
terrorist in that movie.
no, he 1000% was.
Yeah,
I think it was more like the implication where like, well, Norman died, and then the Green Goblin disappeared. Maybe they're the one and the same. And then when they saw Norman, they're like, "Oh, this motherfucker has a Green Goblin suit, so he's clearly the Green Goblin."
maybe
And then we have Kurt Connors and Max. I forgot they were both worked at
they
Oscorp.
did. Yeah.
Yep. And the fucking lizard. "I could make you better. You gonna make me a lizard?" "No, thanks, man." For everything. Oh my god, that shit was great. That entire interaction was great, and that's when you see. I'm sorry, I'm shifting
That's
from
okay.
laughter to um from, and then in that scene you see Peter's conflicted because he's like, "Wait, all these people died," and that's when Strange comes in. And he's like, "All these people died fighting Spider-Man."
Not all of them.
I mean, I don't. Yeah, because I don't get how Sandman died fighting Spider-Man unless
And Lizard
motherfucking
didn't die either.
he didn't.
Oh, because he went to jail, right? At the end of the first Amazing Spider-Man movie, and he got visited by that guy who wears a hat.
Oh yeah. You're right. You're right. I just saw it too. I can't believe I blanked out. It's because I was thinking of Gwen's dad who died, and
He
I was
did
like, no,
die.
Peter definitely. I was like, Peter definitely killed him. But no, you're right.
Mhm.
So yeah, you see Peter a little conflicted, and then their plan. Wait, what happened here?
Well, the
Uh,
strange plan was to just send them back with his
to,
little box thing, but Spider-Man was like, no. And then they fight for a while. They go to the mirror dimension, and Peter figures out the geometric dimensions of the mirror dimension, uses it to trap Strange there. I think this was like also like one of the points of the movie a lot of people considered weaker because like CGI was not very good, and I think a lot of people agree like the green screening is very obvious in certain shots, like more obvious than it should be. To another extent, it's like people don't like the idea of Spider-Man beating Doctor Strange, and I get
but
behind
he,
that. Sorry, I just wanted to add that I think a lot of people like have also theorized that Doctor Strange doesn't want to like necessarily do it himself, so that's why he hung around there for a while. Like he could have realistically freed himself by like manifesting a circle around the webs and cutting them, but he just hung. He just like hung around for a while just to give Spider-Man like a little bit of a head start.
well, no. Well, I was gonna say two things, but before we get into the mirror dimension, Strange basically removes his Parker's earthly tethers, and we see the spider senses when he's
Oh yeah, yeah.
in
Spider-Man
spirit
is
form.
intrinsic. The spider sense is intrinsic to the body or whatever, right?
Yeah, which was a reference to the Spider-Man 1 or 2, I think. I think 2 with Molina back in the day, where he basically says that it's like second of breathing where it just happens on itself, like he doesn't control it.
Well,
And I
but he
also
was
liked how
referring
they
to love in that scene.
oh. Oh, he referred to one of the spider senses in it
No,
though.
he was referring
One
to
of
love. He says Peter says like, you don't. Well, his Doc Ock's wife asks like, Peter, do you have a girlfriend? And Peter's like, oh, I don't know. And what Ox is like, what? Oh, shouldn't you know? I mean, who would know if not you? And he's like, oh, leave him alone. He's maybe it's a secret love. And Ox says love should never be kept a secret. If you keep it a secret, it makes you sick inside. When you know, and such. And I got lucky with love. And his wife says, yeah, we both did.
no, I wasn't talking about that. There was another scene where I think where he's talking to Toby's Spider-Man. He's talking to Kurt Connors because he was his doctor about how in his dream he thinks he's Spider-Man and the
No, he was
spider
he,
sense.
he was talking to a therapist or a doctor, not like Kirk
No,
Connors. And
he was talking to Connors.
no, he wasn't. Not about the dreams and stuff. He tells the doctor, I've been having these dreams where I'm Spider-Man, but I'm losing my powers. I crawl up a wall, but I keep falling. And the doctor says like dreams can be an extension of our subconscious. Maybe you're not meant to be Spider-Man climbing these walls. That's what makes Peter temporarily give up being Spider-Man.
No, motherfucker. This motherfucker. Hold on.
Okay, if you want to like Google the scene, like feel free. I will just quickly
Hold on.
talk
No,
about
well,
what.
we'll transition.
Yes,
I was just gonna talk about the spider senses in the background when he's
Spider-Man in any way whatsoever.
no. I'm changing the conversation because I need to go rewatch it, and I feel like the movie's already long enough as it is, and I want to talk about the other scenes.
Yeah.
So I'm going back to the No Way Home movie.
Okay.
We'll put the other conversation on hold for now.
Okay.
When he does remove him from the early tether, I don't know if you noticed, but on the top of his Peter's astral form, I think that's what it's called. He had his like little spider senses that are shown as Strange is trying to get the box. Every time he's trying to get the box, the senses go off and Peter's body moves. I don't know if you saw that.
Yeah, I know. Like that's how I know that the spider sense or whatever is intrinsic to the body.
Yeah, I just thought it was a really good scene. And then, like you said, the mirror dimension. Going back to that, I think that also plays a part in Strange's arrogance. He sees Peter as a kid, and I think this scene did something that none of the previous MCU Spider-Man movies did, which is actually show Peter smart.
Hmm.
Right? He
Yeah.
motherfuckers figuring out the dimensions and geometrical shapes and whatever the fuck. And then he's like, you know what's better than magic? Math. You know, every math teacher's gonna be using that fucking line for the rest of their goddamn life. Um, and then he steals the ring, the sling ring, which is gonna play a huge, important role later on in the movie. And he just gets out, and then he tells both Ned and Michelle, "Oh, I beat Doctor Strange, but I don't really think he beat Doctor Strange. I just think he held them up, like not literally. Well, literally he did, but like I don't know how to explain it because I don't see that as a Spider-Man win. I see that more as a draw because Strange was using his arrogance, and then Peter was just trying to survive, right? But then that's when they have the conversation with the villains. They're like, "I'm gonna try to save you guys, so let's go or stay here and die." And who was the one who had that quippy little line about, "Oh, our two choices lead to death"?
Sorry, can you say that again?
Who was the character who had that quippy little line about their two choices leading to death, whether staying in the sanctum or going with Peter to be saved?
I can't remember who said that.
I feel like it was a lizard, and then we have a little throwback line.
Ooh,
I'm somewhat of
yes.
a scientist. When Norman says, "I'm somewhat of a scientist myself,"
Mhm.
crowd lost their mind.
Yeah.
Um, and then from there we do shift over. Everybody agrees to go reluctantly to Happy's condominium, and that's when they start working on the villains themselves. Is there anything I've missed so far, or is there anything you want to talk about, or should I just continue?
I feel like the rest of the movie is like, sorry, in other words, like the rest of that scene is like you pretty much got it. I think the next part that was interesting probably is like them just like being in the apartment working on stuff. Also, like I don't know if they explained this, but maybe why did the lizard stay in the truck? Like, did he just not want to be seen? What was that about?
He didn't want to go up. He's like, I'd rather stay in the
But like,
truck.
why would he not? Why would he rather stay in the
He,
truck?
well, for starters, he doesn't want to be cured. We know this. He feels like being a lizard is the
Oh, true.
greatest thing ever. So he's like, you keep my ass in the goddamn truck, and he stayed in the truck. I respect him. I mean, I stupid as decision, but I respect the fucking
Okay.
the
Yeah. No, I
belief
was just
that
confused about the motivation there, but that makes sense.
yeah. And then everybody's getting worked on. It really shows. Again, we're seeing this Peter's intelligence and how he's not reliant on others and how he's able to get shit done, which I really enjoyed because the other two movies he was literally Iron Boy Jr. and there was even a little Time magazine within the movie that said Iron Boy Jr.
Uh-huh.
with a baby crying. So I really like that they showed this. So yeah, they fixed the inhibitor chip for Octavius. They're fixing the device for Electro, but and then I'm so sorry. So when he fixes the inhibitor chip for Octavius, it actually works. And Octavius is like, "Oh, I forgot how it felt to not hear any noise
Hmm.
or any voices." I mean, and then we have Sandman and Electro having a conversation. Like I said, Electro killed the scenes where he's like, "How you get how you end up like that?"
He's like, oh
Oh,
yeah,
I
I fell into a
fell.
hadron collider. I fell into a tank of electric, genetically modified electric eels, and Sandman's like, yeah, we got to be careful about where we fall, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Again, fucking killed it.
Yeah.
And then from there we have Electro kind of like, "Oh, I don't want this. This doesn't feel right." And he's like, he's being all like angsty about it.
He
And
likes
then
the
he
power.
asks,
He's gotten addicted to it, clearly.
"Yes, he has." And then he asks Peter, "Are those your Legos?" And Peter's like, "Oh, I gotta go, gotta go, gotta go. My bad, gotta go." That scene though, because he then, because then we have a scene with Norman and Otto where Otto's like, what does he tell him? He tells him about how you won't have that voice anymore or some shit. Something along the lines where you won't have that dark side in you.
Yeah.
And then you see the switch. Cause you see every like time slows down and Peter's just like assessing the situation and like everything that's going on. And then you just hear the web zip on fucking Norman's hand and you see the face that Norman has. Dude, that was the greatest decision they've ever made. Removing the mask from fucking William Dafoe. Because the guy's faces were serial killer esque. And he basically convinces all of them to
Turn on Spider-Man,
why
basically, except for Doc
yeah,
Ock. And when he doesn't turn on him, Electro blasts him out of the building.
yeah, but what was his line? He's like, why should gods give up their power or
Something to that
something like
effect,
that?
yeah.
Yeah, and everybody, and then Electro's like, all right, you're right, fuck it, I'm out. And then Sandman's like, all right, I'm gonna dip. And then it just shit went down. That entire fight sequence with Goblin and Tom was insane.
Yeah, best Goblin fight in any of the Spider-Man movies.
Hands down. Hands down. He Goblin sent him through like 3 or 4
Yeah,
stories.
or more.
And then Lizard came in and started helping him. And then Electro was like helped, and then he dipped. And then Electro and Sandman started attacking the police outside. It was wild. It was fucking
I didn't
wild.
interpret Sandman as attacking the police. I just thought he was trying to get out of the way, and they were just impacted by the volume of sand. That's how I interpreted that.
That's fair. Yeah, I could see that. I saw his attack because even if he was trying to get him out the way,
Yeah.
or even if he was trying to get out the way, he's still attacking him to get them out the
Plus
way.
J. Jonah Jameson
But
being there.
yeah, Jay Jones, he's the perfect bad guy. One thing before we get to a depressing moment, one thing that I loved was when May asked Otto, "Do you want salt water or
Tap water?" And she's like,
tap
"Oh,
water?"
because you're an octopus." And he's like, "I'm not actually an octopus."
That scene was oh, oh shit, that shit was great. And then she did the smart thing. She got the stuff that they were working on, started running away. But then when when the goblin sends Peter all the way to the ground floor, May sees that Peter's in trouble, and instead of running for safety because she's not a superhero. I mean, some could argue she is because we'll talk about it later. You see her attack Green Goblin with the medicine, but we learn that it doesn't work. And then she gets struck by the glider. Not gonna lie to you. Not gonna lie to you. The moment she got struck by the glider and got up, I was like, all right, we good. We good. She's not gonna die. My first thought was she's not gonna die. There's no fucking way they kill her off. Uncle Ben is the one who dies. I didn't fucking it didn't come to my head. I was like, this is the MCU. They usually do things differently. And then he throws the two pumpkin bombs, and I was like, Jesus Christ. And then she gets up. Adrenaline's a hell of a thing. She gets up like nothing, and then she talks to him about how it's not his fault. How she gives him the Uncle Ben line: "With great power comes great responsibility." And right then and there, it should have clicked in my head. She said the fucking line. What happens to Uncle Ben when he says the line?
He doesn't have
He
much time
dies.
left.
Exactly. She basically tells him, don't stop helping others. Always do the best you can. With great power comes great responsibility. And then the cops surround him. He's right there having an emotional breakdown because he just lost his aunt.
Mm-hmm.
Right? He literally saw the blood that's coming out of her back. Mm-hmm. And then Happy Hogan arrives, and he's getting like fucking lasers to his head. And then he's just yelling, Peter, run. It's just that shit, that entire sequence right there, that is worth one price of admission, if I'm being honest with you. That entire Happy's condominium sequence. Because there was so much that happened. And yeah, what did you think of how they handled
I thought that was great.
That
Like, it's not even like the climax of the fucking movie.
No, yeah, it isn't. What did you think of the death?
Like, I'm happy about it. I mean, I'm not happy about it, but like, I feel like it was well handled, and yeah, I thought it was really good. And honestly, like in a way, even more impactful than the Uncle Ben deaths from the first Spider-Man movie and the Amazing Spider-Man movie, because like this is the Aunt May that we've gotten to know for a couple of years now, and she's been like, she's had more characters, so it feels worse. She's also been such a spunky kind of person. She had that whole thing with Iron Man, and she started looking out for Peter. Like, she died knowing that he was Spider-Man, and she died doing her best to help him, like in a more direct sense than Uncle Ben was. Not that Uncle Ben's wasn't
Yeah,
valuable, but it was different, is my point. And I think that they
yeah.
handled that death scene very well. And it's like the title's like, yeah, there's literally no way home at this point because now you don't have a home anymore. Obviously, there's
No, I'm
more
not
to
gonna
it.
lie to you.
Yeah.
Yeah, everybody was cheering and like hyped when the Spider-Sense scene was happening in Times Square. And then we get to this scene and everybody is quiet. And you could hear motherfuckers tearing up.
Mhm.
I'm tearing up. My brother's looking at me like, what the fuck you doing? I was like, bro, shut the fuck up. She just died. We were emotionally invested in this fucking character for so many fucking movies. And now she's gone. She's not even the main character. I was like, it's okay. And then the powerful scene I feel like is when you just see Peter red, his eyes bloodshot red, the rain coming down on him, and then him just looking up at the screen and J. Jonah Jameson saying, Spider-Man brought this on himself. Basically, he kills anybody who's near him, and how you know he's just the worst thing to happen to humanity. And it was just like a very powerful scene. And I was like, damn, like we go from a high to a low, and then we transition to Ned and Michelle, who are seeing the news. Obviously, they're seeing Jonah Jameson talk about what happened and how there's one casualty. And Michelle, I'll give you this. I'll give Michelle this. When they're in the sanctum the first time, and I let him bring this up. She was basically just, Peter, tell us your plan. I don't care if it's bad. I just want to know the plan. I want to be involved, and that's something I feel like Michelle, a Mary Jane character would do. She would just want to know the plan. She wouldn't care. I mean, she would care if he was in harm's way, but she would just want to be involved. And I feel like
She just
that's
want to be aware of what's going on. Like she doesn't even need to get involved per se. She just needs to know that he's not being stupid about it. Which I thought was like
Mhm.
actually a very Gwen Stacy kind of thing from the Amazing Spider-Man movies.
Yeah, exactly. And it was very much like, you know what? I'm buying this romance. I'm buying. I could see her as her own character now,
Yeah,
because in the
finally.
first two movies, yeah, in the first two movies, you couldn't really do that. You were
No.
like, yeah, she's there.
She's
She's
gotten better
been
for
similar.
sure. She's not Gwen
Yeah,
Stacy yet, but she's got her strong points, and I think they will bring her back for more movies, which we will find out more about her later
definitely.
down the line.
Hmm. And then, so like I said, they're in the room, and then Ned just spamming it. Actually, I missed a line that we should have talked about, which is important for this. When they meet, they go to the sanctum the first time, and Ned goes in, and he's like, "Thank you for letting us in. My nana says I have magic because my hands sometimes get tingly."
Mm-hmm.
And Strange was like, "Go to the doctor, kid. Go to your doctor.
Mm-hmm.
You're probably having like diabetic attack or something." So when we transition to this scene, and he's like, "Find Peter Parker," and then like the little circle appears, but not fully, and then he does it again. Find Peter Parker, and then the fucking moment
Yeah.
that fucking portal opened, bro. I swear to God, I have my wife recorded this.
Yeah.
I literally turned to her and I was like, "That's Andrew Garfield." The moment I saw the face, I was like, "That's Andrew fucking Garfield."
Mm-hmm.
And then he comes running through the portal, and it's the Amazing Spider-Man. Everybody's losing their shit in the theater.
Yeah. Grandma
He takes
freaks
out the
out, and
mask,
then yeah, it takes off the mask. Great fucking scene.
and everybody again loses their shit, and they're like, "Oh my god!" So yeah, that was a fucking amazing. No pun intended. And then I like the interaction between Zendaya or Michelle and
That Peter
Andrew,
Parker.
and she's like, yeah, she's like,
She's like, "Do
I
this." He's like,
first I like
"No, do this." No, 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 I won't do it. And then eventually, like the grandma asks him to do it, and then he does it.
he puts his hand up and he's like basically
Hey, no, he sticks to the ceiling, and
uh
she's like, "Crawl around." He's like, "Crawl around? Why do I need to crawl around? Because this is enough. Like this is plenty." He's like, "No, it's not. Yes, it is. No, it's not. Yes, it is." It's like, well, how do I stick to the ceiling? And she keeps throwing like bread at him as this conversation is going on.
yeah. And he's
And
so
that,
nice.
yeah,
He's like, please don't throw bread at me. Please don't throw bread at me. And then Anana's like, telling Ned in whatever
Tagalog.
language to clean
Apparently, their family is Filipino.
to clean the spider web on the side, and he's like,
Okay.
he respects his elders. He's like, okay, and he's like, there, and he's like, yeah. But I liked how the moment he came in, Andrew's character was basically, "Ooh, multiverse is real. Ooh,
Yeah.
string theory. Ooh, man, like because Andrew's Spider-Man was very much the scientist. Like he was all about that science and that experimentation and shit
He's
and
more
all
into
that.
like the otherworldliness stuff than the others, is
Mhm.
my interpretation.
So I really like, yeah. So I really liked that scene where he's like, okay, okay, and then
You also
fucking
see
end.
like more of this later, but I also love how like the grandma says like literally everything in her own language except for like the really obvious stuff like thank you.
Yeah, she's like, you know what, it's fine, thank you. And then we get, and Ned's like, okay, well, we gotta try again. We gotta try until we find him. And then it was like, find Peter Parker, and Toby steps out, and people are losing their shit over this too. And I was like, yes,
Yes.
this is happening. This is fucking happening. I cheered harder. Times Square cheered. I will say this: Times Square cheered harder for Andrew,
Mhm.
but Toby got basically a higher cheer than anything else besides in that movie, and I loved it.
Makes sense.
And then when he comes out in just his Peter Parker clothes,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, street
So
clothes.
it's basically the and then when they see each other, it reminded me of that Into the Spider-Verse scene with Miles and Peter Parker,
Mhm.
the one that played by Chris Pine, that one that
Yeah.
dies, where their like spider senses are basically tingling and they fight. And I like how they show that Toby basically has an advantage because he stepped off instead of putting both his hands on the roof and then web swung or web shot,
Yeah.
which goes to show
More
that
experience.
he exactly was way more experienced and he knew what he was going, like he knew what to do.
Yeah.
And then I like how Andrew was just impressed. He's like,
He's
oh,
actually just
he was
impressed. He
just
doesn't
impressed.
care
Like, oh.
because he knew it wasn't serious.
Yeah, he was just, and then the grandma, y'all fuckers better clean
Clean all
these
the
webs
webs
up
up,
again.
and then she's like, "I'm going to bed."
And I like how Andrew's that character actually turns around and starts cleaning the webs and picking up the stuff.
Yeah.
It was just, then we get the following scene. We get basically them talking, Toby and Andrew, how they felt basically a disturbance and how that their Peter, Tom, I'm gonna start referring to them by their actor name
Yeah,
because
at
they
this
still get
point, it's
confusing.
probably easier that way.
And Tom needed their help,
Yes.
and how they wanted to be there for them.
Tom needed his
And then they
brothers.
talked about, mm-hmm, and how does he have a spot to go to? And then Andrew, no, Toby says the Chrysler Building. I think, yeah, he says the Chrysler Building. Andrew says the Empire Building because it has a better view. And then Zendaya's like, yeah, I think I know. And then that iconic, for me, it's iconic. That scene of them at the top, basically their silhouettes,
Mhm.
and then while they're waiting for Zendaya to that hug scene that Zendaya, Ned, and Peter had and Tom had was very nice. It showed their closeness, and there wasn't really words said. It just showed their closeness, and I like how Tom, even though he just went through that grief, he felt like someone was coming. So his first reaction was, "All right, stay behind me." And he's like, "Whoa, what the fuck is this?" And then we just see Andrew and Toby come down and just talk about their experience. Toby with how he lost Uncle Ben, and then Andrew with how he lost his MJ. He
Yeah.
says, "I lost Gwen, my MJ," and it really shows how Toby Toby's Spider-Man basically grew out of the rage and the anger because he said it so himself. He's like, "Yeah, I was angry and this and that," and then Andrew's fucking Spider-Man, he was like, "Nah, I just grew angry. I grew bitter. I was no longer the friendly neighborhood Spider-Man." I need to see that movie where he's just fucking killing people left and right. That's basically Superior Spider-Man. I need to see that.
Totally.
uh, it was just a nice little scene, and they're talking about it, and they're talking about how with great power comes great responsibility, and that line and how the importance of the line, and that's when Tom basically gets it. He's like, okay, that's what happened, and then give me a second, I gotta catch my breath. So if you want to talk about this scene for a bit while I catch my
Yeah,
breath.
feel free. I feel like you kind of already hit it on the head. It was just a really important personal scene. You can tell like Tom is like very angry. Like these are two other Spider-Men, and he doesn't even want to see them. He's literally willing to let the villains die at this point, and tells them like, you know what, they're your problem now. We're gonna send them back. But it's like the humanity and like the issues that the other Peter Parkers have dealt with that they can talk him down, and it's like, hey, we're here for you, we're going to work with you. And that's where we get to the next scene of everybody coming together to work
Yeah.
together and find the cures for the various villains that they've encountered. And you slowly restore like Tom's like character's like cheerfulness and his willingness to like believe in the whole second chance thing that Aunt May had been talking about, which we didn't really mention. But like, yeah, Norman came to her as like a normal person, clearly with like this I don't know, like the schizophrenic dealings, and she's like, no, you have to help him. And she was like, yeah, you can't like kill these people, like you can't like throw them and lock away the key, you gotta like find a way to help them. That's what built up later to the whole responsibility angle with her, which I thought was pretty well handled. Yeah, that whole like rooftop scene was really well done. Love seeing like the costumes and stuff when they came up later. I actually thought it would have been cool if they had their costumes there, but I guess it's like now you probably want to like save that for later anyways. But yeah, no, like it was some very dark shit, but like the appropriate
Yeah.
kind.
Mm-hmm. And I like how the like Toby and Andrew were at different spectrums of the Spider-Man character. One was Spider-Man 24/7. One was willing to be Peter Parker more than Spider-Man. And you have Tom in the middle who at this point he's like, I don't care anymore. I just kill them all if you want. I'm done with you, like you mentioned. And I like you said, the the kindness of Andrew and Toby's Spider-Man brought that optimism back to Tom's. And then when they go to the the laboratory, I like how Andrew's Spider-Man was like, "Oh, I've already cured Connors. Here's the thing. I'll take care of this right away."
Yeah, because
And
like
then
same kind of Spider-Man genius, he remembers that decay rate algorithm. So whatever antidote
yeah,
he made in the Amazing Spider-Man movie, he would remember that here too.
and then Tom basically said he'll take care of the Electro because of the Stark
Yeah.
reactor. And then we have Toby who's like, I've been thinking about this for years. I'm gonna cure Norman. Gotta cure them all, right?
Yeah.
And then you just have Tom's just basically nod.
Mhm.
He's still conflicted, you could tell, but he nods in agreement. And then we get the iconic finger pointing scene from Spider-Man
Mhm. Well, actually,
with
before that, I want to talk about a funny scene where Ned asks Toby
oh yes,
Maguire, like, "Hey, do you have a best friend?" And he's like, "Yeah, he died after trying to kill me. It was very tragic." And then Ned is like,
he
"Peter, I promise to never like kill you or whatever he said.
become a super.
To never become a
He's no,
supervillain.
because
Maybe was it? I don't remember.
Toby said, yeah, he died in my arms
After he tried
after
to
he
kill
tried to
me.
kill
Yeah,
me.
very tragic.
And then Ned was like, and then in the background, Andrew Garfield's character is
Just
just
looking
listening
at it,
in.
just like,
He's like,
what the fuck happened to you?"
and then
No,
Ned's reaction is
retroactively,
like,
like I'm sure, like he probably has the same kind of idea because like his Harry didn't die, but his Harry did become a supervillain.
his Harry. No, well, in deleted scenes and deleted set photo, not deleted set photos, but in set photos, you see Andrew Garfield Spider Man just basically cripple Harry Osborn.
Oh, I didn't know that.
But they took it out this movie because Sony at the time was clearly stupid. But Ned's reaction was basically the
Like,
Pika
sorry,
shock
I'm supposed
face.
to like in the Amazing Spider-Man 2 at the end, doesn't that also have a scene with Harry in like a jail cell being visited by the Hatted Man?
Yeah.
Yeah, so like he couldn't have
Hmm.
died.
No. He basically like crippled him bad to the point where Harry was like kind of fucked,
Yeah.
but the suit basically helped him stay. Um, but Ned basically had the shock Pika face. He's like, what? And that's when he goes to Tom because Tom asked him
Help with the
for
computer
something,
thing.
and then he's like, I just want you to know that I will never become a supervillain. And I will never hurt you. And Andrew's character just fucking pats him on the shoulder and winks. He's like, "Yeah, I good job, man." And then fucking Ned's like, Peter. They all turn which one, and they do the pointing thing, the Spider-Man
Yeah,
pointing
yeah, yeah,
meme.
I've seen it.
And then they're like, Parker. He's like, well,
We're all
they're like,
named
yeah,
Parker.
well, it's like the computer. And it was fucking great.
Yeah.
That entire interaction was so fucking sick. From that little fun, optimistic moment, we jump to Peter calling the Daily Bugle to broadcast his message, which I found interesting, but at the same time, it made sense because Daily Bugle in this universe seems to be like World Star and
I
shit,
think the
or
comparison was
TMZ.
InfoWars.
Yeah, but yeah, okay, fair enough. I see it because the person in
Because
charge
InfoWars.
selling supplements. Yeah, fair enough. Um, and then he basically says to the world, "Your friendly neighborhood Spider-Man needs help." I thought that was a nice line, and that's when they arrive. Is this where they do the iconic three Spider-Man pose, or is it after?
No, they do that
Is it
after.
after they? Okay, fair enough. So they arrive and then they set the plan up, everything.
Like basically, it doesn't
Sorry.
go well like initially, and then as like Sandman is like throwing the sandstorm around and Electro's firing lightning, that's when they get inside, and they have probably one of the most. Also, I want to talk about some stuff first, like while they're waiting for the setup, because there's actually a lot of good conversation in there too. Um,
Yes.
First, I think was just like a comedy scene where like Toby's back hurts, so Andrew Garfield says like, "Hey, I can crack that for you." So then he does, and then they start talking about like the fact that Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man can shoot webs organically, but the other two can't. And then Tom asks like, "Oh,
Can't.
hey, what are some of the craziest villains you guys have fought?" He's like, "Oh, you it seems like you met some of them." And Toby talks about Venom, the alien made of black goo, and Tom's like, "Oh yeah, I fought an alien, but he was purple, and it was on Earth and in
And then
space."
and he was like, "Wait, what?" And then Andrew,
I,
"Oh,
I I'm lame.
my guys are
Like
lame."
I'm lame. Like I fought
Uh,
a Russian guy in a rhinoceros suit, and actually, like one of the really nice parts of the movie was like Toby like telling him, can we rewind back to that part about lame? Because you are not lame. Like you're
you are
amazing. Like you're
amazing.
amazing." And he's like, "Thank you. I needed to hear that." It's like, "Yeah, you needed to hear that. Like you needed to get some respect right there."
Oh, yeah, some massive appreciation. And I really like you could tell these fucking guys had fun on set
Hundred
together.
percent.
You, you could fucking tell they had so much fun together, and I fucking loves that. Um, the one thing I did want to go back to that you mentioned was the whole teasing. He's like, "Are you guys teasing me
About the
about
organic webs. Oh
my?"
yeah, because Tom also has that.
And
Does it
then
just come out of your wrists, or does it come out of anywhere
yeah,
else?
and then he's like, "No, man, we're just
So
curious,
we can't
because
do that.
me and him." And then Andrew's like, have you ever run out of webs?" And he's like, and
But have
that's
you ever
when
had web block?
Toby's like, "You know
Yeah,
what?
like yeah,
Yeah,
existential
yeah,
crisis, and like, oh yeah, I've had that.
yeah." That entire conversation was so great because it was references to the original movies and then references to
Every movie
both
and like
Tom.
comparisons between the two that like fans have been having for a
Mhm.
while.
I One thing I will say right now is that the thing I love the most about this movie is that it basically says that regardless of who your favorite Spider-Man is, they're all
Yeah,
great. It doesn't have to be where one is greater than the other. You could have a preference, sure, but this movie basically showed that all three of these guys embody
yeah,
Spider-Man
they
in
all have their
their own
strengths and
way.
weaknesses, and you can appreciate every one of them for what they've done.
And it makes their previous movies as Spider-Man that much better because they essentially tie into this movie would not work without those movies
100%. Like
happening.
that. I mean, that part is also obvious, but it's also like it gives you new appreciation in kind of the same way that
Hmm.
Endgame gave a lot of people more appreciation for Thor: The Dark World because a lot of people hated that movie. But after seeing Endgame, they're like,
Hmm.
okay, like I see some of the strengths now in retrospect.
Hmm. And then obviously Andrew Garfield is getting so much love as Spider-Man, which is like I love the fact that he's getting so much love because for so
Yeah.
long people were like, "Oh, it's just ugh." But going back to the entire fight scene, because there's another great scene, guys. I don't want to brag, but I'm in the Avengers.
Oh
The
yeah.
Avengers,
Because like when they're like, oh,
great.
we don't know how to work as a team. It's like, oh yeah, I do. I have been in a team before. I don't want to brag, but I was in the Avengers. And then Toby's like, oh, that's great. What is that? It's like, oh, you don't have the Avengers. And Andrew's like, oh, is that a band? Are you in a band? It's like, no, it's not a band. It's the Earth's Mightiest Heroes. And Toby there is
And
screaming like,
then,
how is this helping?
yeah, I know. I love because Toby had the dramatic pause. He was like,
Yeah.
"Great." Pause. What is that?
I
And
think
then
and
Andrew's
Tom
like,
says thank you, but then he's like, what is that? It's like, oh, you guys don't have the Avengers? Yeah.
"That shit was that scene was fucking
Yeah,
priceless."
100%.
And then he's like, "All right, I'm Peter 1, you're Peter 2," and then Andrew
Yeah, Peter 3.
fucking self-deprecating. He's like, "Peter
No, like Tom
3."
appointed him Peter
I w-
3, and then he agreed with it.
no, he as he pointed, he's like Peter.
Or
They
he's
said it
no,
at the
like
same
no, like
time.
no, like he said Peter 2, and then Toby Maguire quietly agreed. Like not quietly, like he verbally agreed, like in like
Hmm.
a casual way, and then he pointed to Andrew Garfield, Peter 3, and Andrew Garfield is more agreeingly Peter 3. That's me. Yep, and yeah. Then they're gonna run out, and um before they run out, the Andrew stops them. He's like, wait, love you guys, and they're like, thanks, bro. Clearly their
Thanks.
characters did not know how to react to that. That was an interesting see because like earlier on, Andrew also said like, oh, this is so cool. I've always wanted brothers. It's like, okay, yeah,
Hmm.
now the three Spider-Man brothers are all going out there, and then that's when they do the
Wait, wait,
sorry.
wait. Oh, wait. So that line, the "I love you guys," was
I know
improvised. That's. I think that's what makes it greater because I feel like
that yeah,
no
maybe I hadn't
other.
thought of this earlier, but that also would explain the hesitation because like don't break character.
Can you imagine? You're filming an action scene. I love you guys.
Yeah, but then it's Andrew
Uh,
Garfield. You're like, okay,
was
I'm okay with that.
like, wait, was that the line? Are we doing that line?
That's
Oh,
probably why I
that
had to think
shit.
about it.
Yeah. And then go on.
But yeah, like, then is like the swinging scene, the three of them swinging together, and then that's the landing scene that
Dude.
you were mentioning earlier.
Oh, the swinging. That that is the most hype thing of 2021. The way they're
Three of them together,
swinging
yeah, I would say so.
together and then swinging off each other and then the fucking landing. I didn't like Andrew's pose as much as Tom's and Toby's, but I still like that the three of them are there and it's like iconic. You best believe when it's in 4K, I'm gonna have it as my fucking
Yeah,
wallpaper everywhere.
just wait for that fucking Blu-ray.
One thing, yeah, I can't wait. One thing I don't think we talked about was when they first started fighting, how Max basically told Andrew. Andrew's basically, "Hey Max, I missed you," and then Max was like, "You're not the shit anymore." Oh, okay, sorry. And then they just continue fighting, and then I liked how we had Toby versus the
Yeah,
Lizard because that's what Sam Raimi wanted to do initially for like Spider-Man
right.
4
Yeah,
or
yeah.
Spider-Man
No, it,
3.
it was four. He wanted to use Kurt Connors because he had already been introduced as like a one-armed scientist in the movie, and have him just be the lizard. And they were thinking about having the Vulture appear as well.
So I liked how they basically
I have
gave
follow-up
us a
questions for you
lizard
regarding
versus
that stuff too, but we'll get to that after we discuss the rest of the movie.
no problem. And then yeah, so going back to the actual fight, we see them coordinating and working together, and it's going better than before. Easily, they're communicating more. They're trusting each other. They're trusting their
They
instincts.
end up actually succeeding in storing some of the villains initially. They managed to get I believe it's Liz. I think it was either Lizard or Sandman they got first, and then somewhere along the line, Doc Ock actually shows up, having been. I guess he because like he
Mhm.
survived the blast from Electro, and he cures him while pretending to be working with him. He catches him off guard.
That was
Yeah,
amazing. Alfred Molina killed it.
totally.
Yeah, because they captured Sandman, and they used that footage from Spider-Man 3 where he's turning human again in the Toby Spider-Man 3, and then that's when he comes back as his normal self, but we don't see him because you know they didn't really have
Fair
him.
enough.
And then we have the Lizard saved. No, the Lizard wasn't saved because the Lizard was the one chasing after Ned and Zendaya's character,
Yeah.
and that's why they came through the scaffold buildings. And then yeah, when fucking Octavius showed up, my first thought was, damn, Electro really fucked him up to the point where he fucked up the chip again.
Oh yeah.
And then he grabs him, and I was like, oh shit, this man's a double agent. All right. And then he just puts that shit on his reactor, and then he's done. And before we continue that the rest of the conversation, I just want to talk about how Max basically talks to Andrew after he loses his power, and he's like,
Interesting aspect. I
"You,
was reading somewhere that this is classified as a plot hole because in the Amazing Spider-Man movie, he never found out that Peter Parker was Spider-Man.
here's
Yeah,
here's an argument.
because I'm actually asking for your
He
explanation because I don't get that. Because that might be the case, but I don't remember.
he worked at
Right.
Oscorp. He worked with Harry. Remember, Harry was after Peter Parker
True.
because Harry told him, "Find me Spider-Man," and it's you could guarantee Harry was on the petty shit,
Yeah.
so he wanted Peter Spider-Man. And then when Gwen showed up at the power plant, she said, "Peter, Electro's not that far away to hear." So my thing is, he probably knew the name Peter Parker as Spider-Man, but he didn't know what he looked like, which would make sense because when he's talking to him, he's basically, "Yo, you're a white boy."
Well, no.
He's
Just to
basically
be
you
specific,
save
he
you.
he, he said, "Oh, you're from
I
Queens. You wear that suit. You help a lot of poor people. I just thought you were gonna be
oh,
black." And he's like, "Oh man, I'm
yeah,
I'm sorry about that." It's like, well, there's got to be a black Spider-Man out there somewhere. Which a
and
lot
he
of people in the
smiles.
theater were like cheering for that too because they want Miles Morales.
I yeah, in a little tangent here. Um, well, first, let me finish this. So, and that's what I think happened. Where he knew the name Peter Parker as Spider Man, he just didn't know what he looked like, which would make sense because again, his assumption. Oh, I thought you'd be black. His name was like Maximilian. Yeah, Electra had some
Max
super
Dillon.
white boy name. So yeah, Maximilian. No, Max Dillon. Yeah. So I was like, oh, he's like, okay, he's probably black. So when he tells him that, it's like, oh, okay, well, fuck me. One thing I do want to say though is when fucking Max tells Andrew, "I thought you'd be black," Andrew smiles. He smiles like, again,
What?
this is just a fanboy in
Huh?
me. This is just a fanboy in me. I think that in Andrew's universe, there's a Miles Morales
I
who's Spider. That's just that's just my fanboy theory. There's no
Yeah, there's
proof.
not. Like I was just
There's
gonna
no
like because I
nothing.
do literally like the same shit. Like I think anybody would react kind of the same way. It's like, oh, you're X, but I thought you were gonna be Y, and like no one's gonna. Like very few people would actually get offended by that. Most of us will probably just smile, be like, "Oh yeah, sorry to disappoint you, buddy," or whatever. Like it's because it doesn't fucking matter.
I just want to be on the record in case it does happen. Just
Well, that's
it's
a
probably
theory
not
we
gonna
can
happen
talk
because
about
it's
later
Sony.
down the line too.
It
There
is. It
is
is.
more.
But yeah. And then we see Toby basically
It's Otto
reconnect
Octavius.
with
Yep.
how you been, my boy? It's been you're so old or some
He
fucking
said
line like that.
something. How
And
have my boy? How have you been? And Toby's like trying to do better.
yeah, and that's a line from Spider-Man 2. Lots of shit went down. It it pays off to have seen all the other Spider-Man movies before.
Obviously, yeah.
Movie marathon that bitch if you haven't, because it's basically a culmination of 3 Spider-Man
Yeah.
legacies, and it's just fucking incredible.
Then
But
Doctor
then
Strange returns.
Doctor Strange returns and he's losing his shit, and I like how Andrew's like, "So you were in the Grand Canyon instead of helping him?" And Tom's like, "Nah, bro, don't tell him that." I kind of put him there. So I don't want to hear that. You don't want to hear that.
Yeah.
And
There
then
was like, yeah, he
that's
put him there, and yeah,
uh,
oh yeah, and then
God.
you saw like Ned with the ring or whatever.
He's like, "Did you just open
Yeah.
a portal?" He was like, "Okay, okay." And then the Green Goblin shows up. Well, we didn't talk about Lizard chasing Zendaya and
Didn't
Ned
really amount to
going
much
to the
though.
scaffold. Well, it kind of leads to an important scene afterward with the Green Goblin showing up. But yeah,
I
basically,
mean, he chased him.
Lizard
They
chases
cured
after
the
them.
lizard, and
Tom cured the lizard, and then Zendaya and Ned are, or Michelle and Ned are in, basically in a very faulty area. Green Goblin shows up, throws the bomb at the thing, at the little box. What's it called? The cube of
whatever the
whatever the fuck.
container was for containing Strange's original
Mhm.
spell.
It blows up.
Actually, there's like a really
People are
interesting scene
falling.
too of like him coming down. Then he tries to like fly away, and Octavius tries to like grab him, but then he uses the glider to like cut off one of the tentacles. I was like, holy shit, it could do that. I
Yeah,
didn't know that, because those tentacles, from what I remember, are like titanium or whatever. Like that's Iron Man's armor, basically. His initial armors.
yeah, no. Green Goblin don't
Yeah.
fuck around. He's like, nah, you gone. Chop, chop.
And then we get to like the
You
really
three
crazy shit of like the thing happens, the bomb explodes, and then like the tower starts like the structures around collapsing,
collapsing.
and then we get the scene like everybody had been waiting for since the tower, which we actually talked about like in one of the old
Mhm.
podcasts, because I said, because apparently the original theory was like, because we saw MJ just falling initially, and everyone's like, oh, Andrew Garfield's gonna save her as like redemption, and I'm like, don't really think that's gonna happen. And then we saw another trailer,
Mhm.
and it does look like Tom is the one reaching out to her. So,
And
wait,
he
and he
is.
is. So
He
it was
is.
very cleverly cut, because like I remember, I don't know if this was you or if Dav was joking about this, but someone said to me like, "Oh, well, what if if it was just edited to look like Tom, but it's actually Andrew reaching out to her?" I'm like, "No, that's stupid. They wouldn't do that." It's like they actually didn't. It is just Tom reaching out to save her, but he isn't able to because the goblin like grabs him and drags him away,
The,
and Andrew jumps down and
how,
saves her
how,
instead.
wait. Before we get to the Andrew scene, the Andrew aspect of it, how did your theater react when they saw Tom? What was Michelle falling down? Tom Spider Man diving
Mhm.
for her, and then the glider just pushing him away. Well, how did they
They didn't
react
react to
to
most of
that
that
scene?
stuff. They were just kind of like proceeding it.
They did
No,
it.
because it wasn't. They didn't start really reacting until Andrew Garfield was like, he saw it happening, and he jumps off, and then they started like cheering and stuff.
Okay, because I had a different experience. The moment she fell, everybody was like, "Oh my god, no!"
I don't know.
And then the
Maybe
moment
like
he,
we already knew that was happening from the trailer though.
well, we knew that, but a lot of people,
They didn't
I
go. They
can't,
didn't see the
can't.
trailer.
I don't think a lot of people seen. My mom didn't know, and
Sure, but would your mom have seen the
she's
movie if you hadn't taken her?
yeah, she would have
Fair
1000%.
enough.
She wouldn't have gone by herself, but she would have gone with like my brother or
Mhm.
something. If you would have said like my brother or something, then probably not. Maybe depends. But my mom would have, because once the glider hits, everybody's like the gasp, like everybody collectively gasps, and then like you said, when Andrew learned from his mistakes. He pushes off as fucking hard as he can, and then he just dives face first towards her. And I really like the scene at the after where he's like carrying her and he's like happy, but he's crying, and she's like, "Are you okay?" She's just asking for his well being, like, "Are you
Yeah.
okay?" And he's like,
Like he
Yeah,
asks her, "Are you okay?"
and
And she's like,
everybody,
"Yeah, I'm okay." And then he's like sad. And he's like, "Are you okay though?" Because she was there for like him discussing this stuff with Gwen, but I don't think she really understood the gravity of it until this point.
yeah, it was just my boy got his redemption.
I
He
guess.
got his redemption. He could finally move on. He's never gonna move on, but he could finally take a step
Yeah.
forward. And from there, we get the most vicious Tom Holland Spider-Man we have seen ever, right? Where him and Goblin are just fighting and he's beating the living shit out of Goblin. Like, like he could have literally killed him with that ground smash if Goblin didn't move.
Yeah. And then he keeps doing it, and then he grabs the glider, and he's gonna impale him with the glider. And then Toby is the one, and like Toby and Andrew are watching from afar and look at each other like, "Holy shit, what's he like gonna do?"
Yeah, they know what's
Yeah,
gonna
but,
happen,
well,
and then
Toby
that's
knows
when they
even more
split
because like
up.
he got because like when he fought Norman Osborn, like Norman Osborn died with his glider, and then he sees Tom pick it up, and he's the one who like gets in the way. Oh,
Hmm.
and I'm sure this is the
It's
same for your theater, but like yeah, my theater was like gave like a whole bunch of exasperated OMGs when like he stopped the glider and then he wrestles it down and calms Tom down, but then the goblin stabs him in the back.
I'm not gonna lie to you. I'm not gonna lie to you. I shouted the loudest, "Kill him! Kill him!" I'm not even a Toby fan, but but I shouted, "Kill him! No mercy!" My wife and like people in front of me were like, "Chill, bro. This motherfucker he didn't kill him." And I was like, I was reading that an alternate ending was gonna be Toby's character dying. So we didn't get it, but thank God we didn't get it because these three together made like magic happen. And then yeah, so they split. So Toby and Andrew split up. Oh, can you let me double check?
While Spidey's fixing his mic, I'll just talk about that. Like yes, Toby stops Tom from killing Norman Osborn once he wrestles the glider down from him and like kind of gets him to calm down. Norman stabs him in the back. My theater visibly audibly gasped, and they were like, "Holy shit!" And I was thinking like when I saw this, I'm like, "Holy shit, man! No, you better not kill Tobey Maguire. You don't get to bring him back for this movie and then just like kill him right the fuck off. That's not what this is about." And thankfully they didn't. It's Andrew Garfield who tosses Tom Holland the antidote, and then he gives it to him, and then it brings Norman Osborn's like normal personality back, and then he just
Can I just
sees Toby next to him lying on the ground. He's like, Peter, Peter, oh, and then he realizes what he's done. Sorry, Spidey, can you say something?
can you hear me?
It sounds the same, bro.
All right, give me a second.
Take another sec to figure that out.
Keep.
But yeah, like no, like fantastic scene, 100%. I'm sorry, I think we did not initially discuss this part, but yeah, when the goblin bombed them and broke the cage, Strange's spell was released, and the sky started cracking, and the multiverse started pouring in, and we see silhouettes of various other Spider-Man characters like Rhino, Craven, Scorpion, Black Cat, and there's some others. There's probably like YouTube videos that detail all the silhouettes. Yeah, like while the Spider-Man are fighting down below, like Doctor Strange is trying to like hold the spell, but like he only goes back to like talk to Doctor Strange after Norman stabs Toby and uh, he gets cured, and Andrew stays back to watch after Toby. But yeah, Spidey, try again.
How about now?
It's a little bit better, but it's not great. But I don't know if we can do anything about it, so we'll have to live with it.
All right. So I'm sorry for my shit mic. I still haven't fixed it. I do want to point out that Tom stabbed that motherfucker as hard as he could with that antidote. Like I'm surprised he didn't
Yeah,
kill him
right.
with that stab that he. He was like, "Nice throw!" Bah! He almost kills him. And going back to the silhouettes, I like Toby's timing, comedic timing. He's like, "Am I dying or is that really
Yeah.
happening?" and that's when you see all the silhouettes. And like you said, some of them were obvious, like Rhino, Craven. And the others are not as obvious, like Black Cat. Oh, Scorpion
Yeah,
was
I
obvious.
recognize the
Black
four that I
Cat. There was
mentioned, but like there were other people who were like, oh, there's Tombstone in the background, and like fucking whoever else, like all these other minor Spider-Man villains that obviously I've never even heard of. But basically, yeah, it was good. And then like that's when
yeah.
Tom comes up with the whole like, hey, just make everybody forget Peter Parker, and that'll fix everything, right? And Strange agrees to it after some consideration.
He's like, but we won't. Strange went from arrogant to humanizing to very. He basically treated Tom like a son, or Tom Spider-Man like a son, because he didn't want to lose him. Because he says, "But those of us who know you will miss you." He said something to that effect, and it just showed that like Strange actually cared for this kid, even though throughout the first portion of the movie he was kind of a pain in his ass. And then we have the scene between him, Michelle, and Ned where he talks about how, hey guys, I'm sorry. This is the only way. I will find you.
Yeah, but before
But
that is actually a scene where
I,
he goes back to see Toby and Andrew
yes,
and tells them like this is what's happening, and he's like, oh, I don't know how I can thank you guys, and they're like, oh, it's okay, this is what we do. And then he's like, I'm gonna go find Ned and MJ, and he's about to go run off, but instead he hugs both of them and tells them
he
like,
turns
thank you,
around,
thank you, thank you.
and then that scene was fucking beautiful.
100%.
And then we have Andrew talking. We have Andrew talking to Toby, and he's like, "You're in a great deal of pain, aren't you?" He's
Yeah,
like,
you're
"Yes."
in so much pain
And
right now. It's like, I am.
it was Andrew and Toby work so well off each other that I need more of that in future
Yeah, that'd be
movies.
nice, wouldn't
I
it?
need them to do that. But yeah, I jumped the gun. Tom tells both of the friends their goodbyes, and then the spell happens, and everybody forgets anything happened. And I like how we get once the spell happens, we get a little Daily Bugle scene where it's like, well, if Spider-Man really wasn't a menace, he would unmask, which basically confirms that nobody knows who Spider-Man is because nobody knows who Peter Parker is. And yeah, we just see him alone going to try to talk to his friends or his old friends. But when he sees Zendaya's cut, he's like, they're better off without me. They don't need
All the trouble that I
these
would bring.
problems. And I feel like that's a very Spider-Man, Peter Parker type move. And yeah, and it ends with him in a fucking bum ass apartment, listening to a radio scanner through the phone, and with a new suit. The suit,
Which is homemade.
if you slow it down, it is homemade, and you could tell it's very inspired by Toby and Andrew's Spider-Man suit. It's a little brighter than not a little. It's more brighter than the other Spider-Man suits that we've ever
It's a
seen.
very cartoony suit, is the way I would put it.
Yes, but the symbol in the back is clearly inspired by Andrew's Spider-Man. The symbol in the front by Toby's. Obviously, the color scheme is a typical Spider-Man, and yeah, overly bright. And then yeah, we see him swing through the Rockefeller Center, and we see the iconic Spider-Man dive credit scene.
Yeah.
Did we miss
No, I
anything?
think we got everything.
Oh, besides the post-credit scene, but
Yeah, well, the mid-credit scene, and then there is no post-credit scene because the post-credit scene is actually a trailer.
oh yeah. It's a trailer to the Doctor Strange Multiverse of Man. We'll talk about that one next week with the catching up with the rest of the gang.
Totally.
But yeah. What did you think of the introduction of Venom and then the removal of Venom?
I mean, I don't know, like
All in the same
it's
movie.
like what I felt about the other Venom post-credit scene. Like it just feels very tacked on. Like they're just doing it to have Venom in the
Okay.
MCU. That's literally it.
I agree. John Watts, the director of this movie, did direct a post-credit scene for Venom, which is probably why it feels so different from typical Venom.
Does it feel typical?
I will say
different from
this.
typical Venom. It just seemed like the same thing. It's just Eddie and Venom arguing again.
I don't know. It just felt different.
I don't know.
I don't know. I just me maybe. I didn't really like into Enter the Carnage because just no comment. We've explained it nauseum. I will say this. I like the fact that they're like, yeah, we want the symbiote in the MCU. You could keep your Eddie Brock. I'm not having that bullshit.
Well, I don't mind Tom Hardy.
I don't either. This gives me hope, though. Again, it's a fanboy in me, and I fully admit 1000% being a fanboy. This gives me hope that Tom Hardy and Andrew Garfield could exist in the same universe. This gives me, and I'm not saying again, fanboy, no fucking real proof, nothing. Just saying gives me hope because we know this movie sold. It has made over $1 billion within like the first 10 days, 12 days. It made over $1 billion, easy, and that's with COVID and everything happening. And we know that Sony has already said they want more of these three characters together. And you know, Marvel and Kevin Feige are not gonna squander an opportunity to bring back Andrew and Tom and Toby together because their chemistry was just on another level. Plus, they kept hinting at the fact that Andrew hasn't fought an alien and how this movie basically was like Amazing Spider-Man 2.5 for me because it's basically Andrew needs a new movie and all these movements that have happened ever since, or like the Snyder Cut movement.
Even a fourth Tobey Maguire movie. But my issue with both of them is like, well, let's start with Andrew Garfield. I don't know who he would fight for his villain because everybody has already been used, and the only thing they could do is like say that he takes place in the like Venom Morbius world, and the other thing is like Black Cat, because like they did introduce Felicia Hardy, and so I'm not familiar with this character too much except for like the Spider-Man like 1990s animated TV show. So I don't really know like her origin. In that show, her origin was like her father had like the Captain America formula, and they used like an enhanced version on her. Do you know her comic book backstory and how she
Silk?
got her powers?
Who? Silk?
Black Cat.
Oh, Black. No. I just know
No?
she was a burglar and shit. Black Cat. I'm an idiot. I type in Black Cat and it shows me a picture of an actual black cat.
Just
Let me.
type in like Felicia Hardy.
Black Cat Marvel Comics. I don't know her backstory. I just know that she was the daughter of a burglar. Because much of the superheroes' origins get shifted from time to time, but I know her. She was basically like a acrobatic girl. Fucking, she was basically Selena Kyle. She was the cat girl,
the Catwoman to Spider-Man's Batman.
Basically the same thing, except she wasn't a prostitute like Catwoman. She was raised by a cat burglar who I don't remember reading anything about him stealing the secret formula. But
yeah,
maybe.
that was just in the like cartoon.
Okay, yeah, fair enough. Yeah, because I just remember she was just a regular criminal who stole shit. She was basically like Robin Hood, but instead of out for the poor, she was like out for herself. She didn't care for helping people. It would be nice to see her in one of the two or one of the three universes. I prefer the Andrew Garfield one just because she was already.
They've already set it up.
They already set it up, and she's kind of already there instead of introducing her because she is the love interest of Spider-Man, as many people know. And it'd just be weird to see Tom Holland as a love interest other than Michelle because they've clearly established that Michelle is the one for him in the MCU. So it'd be kind of weird seeing, oh yeah, he's got another girl. She's over here. Oh, there's a Gwen Stacy here. Oh, there's a Betty Brant. who he's dating, even though she dated Ned. It's like, just keep him, just MCU, keep him with Michelle. Don't try to change that. Don't try to create no love triangle. Because that's the thing I hated about the Toby series. The excessive love triangle between him, Harry, and
Yeah,
Mary
MJ.
Jane. And I was like one day she's with Harry, one day she's with Toby. It's like, my girl, pick a guy already.
Right.
And then with Andrews, we've already established he lost the love of his life. No Way Home basically established a way for him to pick himself back up. He has brothers that clearly he loves and he's very appreciative of, and they love him back because they were hugging at the end, they were bantering, they were having all this moment. So it'd be a nice way for him to basically rebound and just have Catwoman
They
there
like
with
get back to normal life, really.
him. Yeah, and then she has ties to the Kingpin and other gangs in New York, if you will, not the movie. So she's got some connections. And but yeah, that's who Blackhead is. I again, the animated version, I don't remember her. Oh, maybe in the, like you said, the animated version, she might have got it through Captain America, but I don't remember her having any real special powers besides just being a super
Yeah, in the
flexible.
comic, like I don't know about the comic, but in the show, she definitely did. But that's the only way I'm familiar with her. But like, yeah,
Yeah, and she plays. I had a setup of like, and this is kind of a tangent, if you will, but I basically had a roadmap that I wish and hoped, and I hope, sorry, that they follow. If I could find it, there's a lot of Garfield love here.
nice.
It was basically by the end of 2029 or 2028, they do the Spider Island saga, which is again another crossover with every Spider-Man that we get. And then I would introduce Miles Morales, but not in the MCU because I still feel like Tom Holland as a Spider-Man looks and acts way
And I
too
feel
young.
like right now that would be a bad idea considering the plot of No Way Home. Like he
Mhm.
has to be Spider-Man. And this is what I was gonna like also say. Like I think they probably will have like a Miles Morales eventually because they referenced him in Homecoming. But some people have been saying like if Tobey Maguire doesn't really want to come back for like more movies, what if they did like the like Logan for Hugh Jackman? They do that for Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man, and they have like Miles Morales take over in his universe or whatever.
Yeah, that'd be great. Oh, here we go. No, I lied. It's just my list after they finished. No, I can't find it. But yeah, I would introduce. If I was Sony, I would make a live action of Spider-Man 2099, which is Miguel O'Hara, who's a spirit of Mexican and Irish descent.
Irish, right? Yeah, you called him a double drunk.
Yeah, he's the ultimate drunk. Oh, here we go. Here we go. Okay, I found my
I don't know
list.
about that. He doesn't have any Russian or German in there.
He has Mexican and Irish, so he's
Yeah, I
clearly
know, but like you can't discount the Russian and German drinkers. They're
that
pretty
is
bad.
that
And what I mean bad is like they're bad, like they're good at it, but like in a
that's
bad way.
That's fair. That's fair. So here, so I after the movie because I saw it like 2 times, like I said, I made a list of movies that I want Sony to make. It's now you tell me if you agree or disagree, and we could talk about it after.
Go for it.
The Amazing Spider-Man 3, and then I put a little
Yes.
asterisk next to it, whether it be the Amazing Spider-Man 3 or Venom versus the Amazing Spider-Man. Either one of those would work as a third part. Spider-Man 2099, we already established. He We're gonna see him in Into the Spider-Verse or Across the Spider-Verse, my bad. So we're gonna get a connection to him already. So I feel like making him live action would just give more people a chance or a reason to watch him. A live action Miles Morales film, I would make a superior Spider-Man, but I put in parentheses, it would be in the Andrew Garfield universe. Simply because the Andrew Garfield universe has the Oscorp and the others don't. And then
Well, I mean,
obviously,
the first one does with Tobey Maguire, but nobody's running it because Harry's died.
I did it still exist in Spider-Man 3 though, or at the end of Spider-Man 3?
Well, they don't really talk about it in the movie at all, but like I imagine it has to exist because Harry's still rich, so some money has to be coming in.
Because I remember Otto Octavius in No Way Home saying that Oscorp is dead.
Did he say that?
Oscorp, the company, and then
Oh, I don't remember him saying that, but maybe you're right.
so that's why I was a little confused, but who knows? And then obviously Tom Holland needs to continue as Spider-Man in the MCU universe.
Yeah.
Keep him again. Don't fucking mess with the Michelle and love interest. Keep them be as one. Like, I don't give a fuck. Don't you can't do what you did to Andrew's Spider-Man because it just would be bad and it'd be like a rehash and it's just no. And then obviously the Spider Island crossover where everybody becomes Spider-Man. Everything goes crazy, everything goes upside down, and it would be great. So yeah, those are my. If that was Sony Pictures, I would consider doing a lot of these just because the problem is though, and again, I'm kind of it's a double-edged sword. Is they could make all these movies, but they're not going to sell as much as No Way Home because No Way Home was literally a collection of 3 generations of Spider-Man. Right? Everybody
Yeah.
wanted to see that. So if they compare, let's say the Amazing Spider-Man 3, it gets made and it makes $1 billion or $800 million like the Amazing Spider-Man 2 did. And they see it and they compare it to No Way Home, it's obviously going to be a failure because No Way Home could easily make $2 billion just because it has Toby, it has Andrew, it has Tom, it has Doctor Strange.
Yeah.
Doctor Strange doesn't really matter, but you have the 3 core Spider-Man and a lot of their iconic villains. Well, not Tom's because Tom's clearly weren't his villains; they were Iron Man's villains. But you know what? I'm not bashing Tom because Tom is the definition of Spider-Man now, and I'm not even saying that sarcastically. He grew into the role.
Yeah. I agree with you.
So Sony needs to have their own thing. I don't want them to be overly dependent on Marvel because at any given point Marvel could just be like, yeah, you know what, deal's off, or we're done. Or you know what, maybe Marvel and Kevin Feige could be like, Andrew Garfield needs a 3rd Spider-Man movie. Let's make it happen. I will, because Kevin Feige, you could tell he's a lover of comics and lover of comic book movies. He could just be like, I'll help you make it. I'll be an executive producer. I will give you pointers like he tried to in Amazing Spider-Man 2. He's like, you just follow them. And if that happens, then you know what? I'm never gonna slander Marvel again because I fucking need a Spider-Man 3, and it'd just be great because Toby and Andrew's Spider-Man, with the exception of No Way Home, their Spider-Man always fought villains that genuinely wanted to kill them, like genuinely.
Mhm.
Tom didn't until he fought the Green Goblin in No Way Home. Then he realized that goddamn, this fucking guy does not fuck around. Can you tangent? Can you imagine he goes to whatever university and he's like, "Hi, I'm Norman Osborn." He's like, "Let me just kill this motherfucker in his sleep." He's not living here ever again. That'd be fucking hilarious. But yeah, those are my ideas. I don't know. Do you have any ideas for any movies you'd like to see? Any Spider-Man movies you'd like to see?
No, not particularly. Like, I'd be cool with like a 3rd Andrew Garfield movie, and if they do another Tobey Maguire movie, great. But honestly, I don't even feel like I feel like people are overestimating how much he wants to do it. He came onto this project like the latest of all the actors, so they probably had to do quite a bit of convincing, and I'm sure he had fun, but I think it would take quite a lot for him to come back.
Actually, according to Variety, they signed on just by the pitch. They didn't even read the script. They just signed up the moment they were given the pitch.
I find that hard to believe.
I do too, but it gives me a great sense of joy if it's true because it just means they really liked playing the role.
Yeah,
I don't.
sure.
I don't.
Here's the
I
other
don't
thing though. Like Tobey Maguire is also like a lot older now. Like he's pushing like 45, give or
no,
take.
yeah, yeah.
So I don't know if he wants to do it.
I don't. I don't know either. With him, it would be cool to have him in these crossover big events. You get me?
Yeah. Like
Not
I'd
in
also
his,
be happy with that. Just like have him come over for crossovers, be like a guide to the younger Spider-Man and whatever.
yeah, just be there. Have his action sequences. Have his with the line we didn't talk about. So are you gonna suit up or you're gonna go looking like a cool youth pastor?
Yeah.
Um. So yeah, him. I feel like his story was wrapped up as best as it could be in those three movies and even now. Whereas with Andrew, and again, this could be just a bias in me. I feel like Andrews could still be fleshed out a little more because his love interest died. He had self
Yeah.
doubt and he hasn't really recovered from that. Even at the end of No Way Home, he's barely recovering now. So it'd be interesting to see like how he actually turned turned out to be at the end of Gwen's death. Because when the last we see of him, he's fighting, Rhino. But
Yeah.
like, yeah,
And
that's
clearly he won.
yeah, clearly. Rhino had he took that sewer fucking circle to the face.
Yeah, yeah, the manhole cover.
hmm I don't know. Sony did well this year. They've gotten
Yeah.
better with their properties because they've obviously with Into the Spider Verse they did not. If they meddled, you can't tell that they meddled because it was probably the greatest Spider-Man movie ever, besides No Way Home, right?
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, I don't know. Do you? I guess is there anything else you want to talk about?
No, I think that's all that I've got on my mind.
Yeah, same. Just hashtag make the Amazing Spider-Man 3. There, that's all I got.
Yeah, me too.
We're very biased towards Andrew. Tom, I will say this.
Clearly.
I said it on Discord. I will no longer be slandering Tom's Spider-Man because at the end of this entire movie, he did everything I wanted him to do as Spider-Man. He was
Yeah, he did
smart.
everything right.
Yeah, he was smart. He was selfless. He was caring. He wasn't dependent on others. He
Like, yeah, I meant the actor did everything right. So I think that they finally really understand what Spider-Man is all about, and that's why I'm like, don't keep Tom around. Like, we don't want him being replaced by Miles Morales in the next movie.
yeah, exactly. And you know what? If Tom Holland wants to leave as Spider-Man, just bring Andrew back and have Tom take a break for a bit. Have Tom
Sure.
take a break for 5 years, 4 to 5 years, then come back and be rejuvenated. No.
Mm-hmm.
Overall, what would you give this movie out of 10?
Oh, 10 out of 10.
Yes, 1000%. I 1000% agree and support that. 10 out of 10. I recommend people watch it with others. For me, it's a 10 out of 10. But the overall, at least in the theater I went to, the overall fan experience is elevated it so much more because everybody
Yeah.
was oohing and awing and like clapping and cheering and crying.
Yeah, like I was telling a couple of my friends this. Like, I legitimately don't remember the last time I left a theater feeling so happy as I did when I left from seeing Spider-Man No Way Home. I actually wanted to see it again, but lockdown.
No, yeah, yeah. I was fortunate to have seen it twice, relatively close to each other. First time was the greatest experience ever. Second time, I really loved the movie, and I will never say anything bad about it. But the overall fan experience there was just ass. Like nobody cheered for anything. They saw Andrew, and everybody's like, "Who's that?" They saw Toby, and they were like, "Who's that?" And I was like, "Oh my god, you're all dead to me."
Yeah.
But yeah, fan experience in the first one, aka New York, made it amazing. Everybody should go watch this movie. I suggest you watch the first Spider-Man movies. the K before it.
I mean, I feel like if you don't, you're just being dumb at this point.
Yeah, you are, and you're also not gonna get a lot of the references. Like, there's a lot of subtle little
Yeah, you're
comments.
wasting your money.
Yes, I mean you're not wasting your money because it's still a great movie. But yeah,
I mean, yeah, but like you're not going to get the full enjoyment out of it.
fair enough. I agree with that. I agree with that statement there. You're not gonna get some of the dialogue between Doc Ock and Peter, any Peter. You're not gonna get
Yeah,
the interactions between Norman Osborn and the others, or
or
even
Andrew
between
Garfield and Max
Mm,
Dillon.
exactly. You're not gonna get any of that. You want the full experience. Full experience includes the previous movies.
Yeah,
So yeah, watch them. 10 out of 10. We agree. King, your famous outro before I start dying of coughing.
yeah, no worries, man. Okay, listeners, thank you very much for tuning in. We really appreciate it. If you haven't seen it already, go watch Spider-Man: No Way Home. And if you have seen it already and your place is not locked down, go see it again because the movie is just that fantastic. And speaking of fantastic, 2022 is so far shaping up to be a very good year. We didn't really talk about the Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness trailer, but that's because we're going to save it for later when our other co-hosts rejoin us. We will be back soon, but until then, thank you all for listening, and we hope you all have a great day.
Bye, guys.